There we go.
Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my sister Emery.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Emery just happened to hop in on a Wonder Woman. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, sorry, I have the actual browser open on my end to check that it was working, and then all of a sudden I just started hearing the stream go. So it's working, but I thought we had a massive echo all of a sudden. You joined us for my review of Wonder Woman 1984. Had some insightful comments, and just through conversation, I offered you to come on, and you were nice enough to agree to do so. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. I figured with lockdown, I've been watching lots and lots of TV, so I have quite a few things to offer for the subject.
Yeah. Yes. So I just kind of mentioned the stream that we did yesterday with Runaways was a mess, just in terms of inviting someone on that hadn't necessarily read 30 or so Runaway books. But I would recommend them. That's a great series. But I told her about this stream where we're going to talk about the other pandemic, as I put on the thumbnail, streaming services. And like Emery said, everyone's been watching TV lately. That's that thing. Ninja Genko says, "Holy ish, we're on." I don't know what that means, but thanks for joining us. Oh yeah, we can also do a thing with this new program. So Ernesto Dorado says, "Hey, what's up, everyone?" So thanks for joining us. It's clearly working. That's good because we're using a new thing. They do have their watermark on the top corner above your head, Emery, but that's okay.
That's okay.
I figured they would do that. We're trying it out. I might go for the paid service that I assume gets rid of that and has some other features, but I wanted to make sure it worked first. Because for those of you that don't know, the last time we had more than one person on a stream, we had a horrible echo on our platform, and it was a little frustrating for our viewers. Video quality is one of those things people can forgive. I happen to have a very nice camera. Yours looks just fine. No offense, right? It's perfectly good. But if either of us were randomly slipping into low def, this is actually only in 720 pixels. That's one of the paid features of this streaming service. So might be something to do. Okay, that's my sister, guys. So that's what Shadowcatcher said is fine, but let's call that the line in the sand. Polite compliments like that. Anyway, but audio quality can really affect the experience of a video, in my experience.
Luckily, my partner is a little obsessed with technology, and we don't really record anything, but we have the mics and everything we could need.
Yep. That is indeed my sister, by 8 years younger, I believe, roughly.
Yeah, 8 years.
Give or take a few months. Yeah. Cool brother, Ninja Genko says. Yeah. And thanks. Dorian Page 1 says, "How's it going, man? Been watching you for years. Love your work. Keep it up. Thanks." And then Try 3 says, "Quality looks good. Audio too." That is super helpful to hear, actually, because I kind of briefly got a random preview of our audio, but yeah, we look pretty good. So that's great. We might, this was recommended to us by a friend of the channel, Kat Kamalia, who is writer of Like Father, Like Daughter. I guess we're just giving her a plug right now. And I do recommend you check that. There's nowhere that denotes you're my sister. That might be a useful thing to do. Because I said a surprise guest.
I just stay anonymous this surprise.
Here we go, Emery. For those that were watching the Wonder Woman stream, I thought it'd be a fun surprise to be like, oh, we were talking to her, and now you get to meet her. I keep moving. I drift towards what's more centered in my room, but that's just a USB thing that I was playing with.
You know what his stream is called? I was trying to find it.
Sorry, Mike.
No worries. Raphael, thanks for joining us. It's called the Streaming Services Plague. Unrelated aside, that voice you just heard is invited to future streams. I just thought maybe we invite one person at a time. It might be easier for our viewers. So anyways, that's probably enough intro. But Try 3 has a fun fact. He's 12 years older than my sister. Yeah, I've never felt we were like at the threshold of a huge age difference. Our father, when he was born, his oldest sister was 18 years older than him. So
Can't imagine.
yeah, I guess like to us, it's like, or that's always been my perspective.
Yeah.
Try 3, I think, is nicely going to bring us into the actual topic of the stream, though, as opposed to our family history. And he says, this is a legit topic, too. I already have Amazon Prime and Netflix, and I had to get Disney Plus when WandaVision dropped. It's getting out of hand. And in some ways, that's what kind of prompted it with me. So I guess I'm going to do a little intro for our topic here, because and I'll just add a full disclosure, I guess, if maybe you can go into your side of this too, Emery. I subscribe to Netflix and Crave, which is the Canadian equivalent to like HBO Max and CBS All Access combined, along with some Canadian shows, is the best way to describe it, I guess. And I also am going to get Disney Plus because of WandaVision. I'm just waiting for a certain thing to arrive in the mail. Credit card. And that kind of prompted it, along with an ad for a streaming service that sounds interesting. If I wasn't also paying for a podcast service, I pay for YouTube for music. And I'm sure there's more. Oh, right. Also, I have a Nintendo and a PS4, and they both have online subscription services. So it's a lot. And that budget is easily about $100 or so each month. I also pay for Comixology, which is a very wonderful and relatively cheap service for comics. So I forget about them because there's so many. And so I saw this ad, and it's for Sundance Movies. I almost forgot the name of the festival again. So I assume movies that are coming out in Sundance, but also historical ones, then you can pay for and watch them. And when I told Emery about this before the stream, she kind of almost threw me with her reaction. She's like, oh, really? That sounds really interesting. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. But my reaction was kind of also frustration of just these mounting costs, and something like that, which I would probably be interested in, is hard to justify without quitting it. So that's kind of where I felt and why I decided to start this stream. Maybe, Emery, before we kind of continue on with chat, do you want to kind of give your version of that story? Because I'm sure we all have one.
So, this is almost embarrassing with how much TV I watch, but we have quite a few subscription services. And then, as I was just telling Arden, my partner got an iPad for Christmas, so we got the Apple TV services for free. And once we started watching them, we're like, oh, shoot, we're probably going to pay for this in the future because it's pretty good. And so we have Apple TV right now. That's
interesting, because that's one I haven't even considered. But go on.
I wasn't planning on it, and they've gotten me already.
They got you with their free trial.
They got Jennifer Aniston. They've got anyways, we'll get into it later. But it's really good. So we've got Apple TV, we have Amazon Prime, we have Disney Plus, Netflix, and Crave. So we have 5 services, and embarrassingly, we use all of them. Oh, and we have Disney Plus. But we do share them with my partner's family, and our family shares Netflix. But
I was going to point out that your situation's a little more of a household.
So we have crossed households in my defense.
And so is I kind of do the Netflix that's just become me and our mother now, I guess. But there are examples of that where there are shared costs, and that is helpful.
But it adds up. It's expensive.
Also, Crave is very restrictive with that, I find. Well, it lets you have a lot of devices, but I think you're only allowed to be playing a couple at a time, and I'm sure there's more.
You can only change it so many times too. When we moved, we had a problem because we got a TV and then returned it, and then we couldn't have Crave on our new TV because we had changed so many devices with moving. It was just a silly pain in the butt.
Yeah, they can be pretty strict, and I'm pretty liberal without getting into my work too much and giving away those passwords. So I have had to manage that a little bit. So it's just, and it's something that I'm sure everyone in chat is going to have something to say. Try 3 says not even going to get into HBO Max, and that's another side of it. We are both Canadian. Emery actually doesn't live too far away from me relative to the rest of our family, and that colors everything, because there'll be ads out or something where it's like now on Netflix and you look it up, it's like, oh no, that's America. Wonder Woman 1984, HBO Max got it, Crave did not. So it's not like a one-to-one thing with Crave and HBO Max, although that's the first time I think there's been a real departure so far. So, and then there's other stuff that gets broadcast on our Canadian channels and their streaming services first, like CTV and CBC Gem, which I know a little bit about just because they're on a lot of those smart TVs now. And I've had to program in so many over the last few months, but we don't need to get into that. Hey, Zachary Burns says, the unfortunate part is they're all worth it. There's too much good content. Yeah. And I agree. And we might hear more from that gentleman in the future. I have a feeling he wants to do that, right? Probably.
I think so. I think he probably joined in at some point.
And it is very optional for one of them. My guess is you saw the next topic you'll be on with us. And he saw it too, and maybe wants to has an opinion. Try3 says it's not Quibi, is it? No. I assume he's referring to Crave. Quibi is completely dead as far as I know, or going that direction. I don't know if they've quite closed it down yet, but what a disaster. I don't know how much you've heard about that, Emery, but it was a mess.
It was a mess, and I did give it a try. I downloaded it, had the free trial, and I'm personally I'm a fan of a lot of the people they had on. So I was
they had some big names and some pretty ambitious shows and stuff.
But yeah, it's just certainly flawed, and it didn't really make sense. And even so, I found that the comedy shows kind of missed the mark. So I was just like, I'd rather be watching YouTube. Like I watch mostly funny things on YouTube personally. So it was just missing the mark for sure. And then I remember it being advertised as like, oh, when you're commuting, like something short. But they were, I don't know, it's not something I would really watch out of the house. It was all like high quality production, captivating, either like dramas or I don't know. It just didn't really make sense. I gave it a try, even more of a chance than other people, I'd say. But I was like, this
more than I ever gave it.
Yeah.
The big thing for me was I don't really watch much video at all on my phone, and I thought that was always a real flaw, that they were all pushing it in that direction and stuff. And maybe there was a browser version, but then
it was
kind of gets into YouTube territory, like you were saying.
The only cool feature they had was that you could watch the video on either perspective of your phone, and you wouldn't cut anything off. And like that was such a silly small thing. I was like, that's cool. Like anyone else could adopt that. And then also it kind of felt really pathetic and sad to be sitting like on my couch staring at my phone in lockdown because I wasn't going anywhere. And like there's a TV right there, and I'm just like you said, watching on my phone. It felt silly.
It hurts my neck. It starts to happen as you get older. Shadowcatcher makes a point a few people have said in chat. We have unlimited torrents. And that's an interesting thing. A common recurring thing I've heard in various comments as people have talked about this on different videos and stuff is that piracy is kind of creeping back in because of this. To be fair, I'm not thrilled or overly interested in piracy anymore just because of the hard drive space and all that stuff. People talk about getting a massive external or something like that, but that's, I guess, one way of going about it. The other thing is, and this is really silly, but a lot of the times I tend to lose my place when it's just a bunch of video files. There's plenty of ways one can track that, but I tend to be bad at it because I'll put something on, go do 10 other things, it'll end, and I'll have been in another room and don't have the wherewithal to keep track of all of that.
Or you accidentally close a window and you lose your movie.
Yeah. These days, my player is pretty good about remembering where it was, but sometimes it forgets, or the whole computer crashes, and then it really forgets. And it is also illegal, but I find it's just there's all the extra risks for viruses. I mean,
it's just generally so much extra work.
Yeah.
And then
it's
as
easily
someone who already has the subscription services, it's like I'll just find something I can watch that I'm paying for already.
And with VPNs, antivirus software, these things are all manageable, but I don't miss piracy at all. I got rid of most of my files from those days just because I was like, this is just wasting space. I need the hard drive space, so it was just an easy thing to get rid of.
It definitely comes in handy for like obscure
Yes.
film, or if like I've been in a couple weird living situations in between moving where like you might not have Wi-Fi and you have to go use Wi-Fi somewhere.
Yes.
So
That's an
I mean,
excellent
I
point.
certainly in life situations am grateful for torrents and still use that.
Uh, I've definitely been bailed out, like in between Wi-Fi, and you're just staying at a place where like there's
Like,
nothing,
what will
which
it
was
never
here for a few days. This apartment, I mean, when I first moved in, I had to deal with that, and the videos that I happened to have on file were very useful, especially because usually that the way, well, actually, it's true for our American viewers too. Like with how cable companies can be, it can sometimes be an unexpected delay, and sometimes for quite a long time before you get internet back. I hate it so much when that happens. But like it always seems to happen. But that I don't think we're alone in that regard. That's a problem in the U.S. People have also pointed out with VPN, you can use that to watch the Netflix in America. Kind of. They've definitely clamped down on that a lot, and you need a paid VPN service because the free ones, Netflix and most sites recognize now. And then that's another subscription you can pay for on top of your Netflix and stuff. It's honestly a little frustrating because there's a lot of American Netflix, like stuff on American Netflix I used to do that all the time.
I miss that Ola browser. I miss
like
that.
Discovering a whole new library of stuff. The simple browser ones. And then I have never really paid for it. There is a good web browser called Opera now that's a little better with it, but I've never actually attempted it with Netflix. I use it for YouTube to watch Saturday Night Live videos because for some reason I like doing that. It's not that funny. Oh, okay. Chat's going kind of quick, guys. Also, I don't know if we see super chats. So if that's happened and I didn't know, I'm so sorry. Hopefully it would. I would assume this service would be smart enough. Zach Burns, whoever that is, says, now that the studio's decided to go direct to streaming, releasing all their movies on the streaming platform going forward, will this choice be influenced by which movies will be released on them? I think that's another whole area of discussion with the release of Wonder Woman 1984 and several other movies this last year on streaming. Thank you, Zach. That's an excellent question. But it's, I would say, one thing that's been talked about is it's going to scale back the budget on some of these movies. So there's a new James Bond that's filmed and ready to go. I don't know if you've heard this. No Time to Die, I think it's called. They tried selling it to services like Apple TV. Do you know how much money MGM wanted for this?
Well, more than 200 million. I know that.
Apparently it was 546 or 600 million, around there is what they were asking for.
The budget for this movie, like they have to in order to make money on it. They spent so much, and now they're just like, no one can have it because. Well,
they expect to make about $1 billion to a traditional theatrical release, and if they don't do that, they're screwed. So they're not going to do that, and that's why I don't expect Black Widow to necessarily. Although they've been flirting with that a lot on Disney Plus, so who knows? But I would think that Black Widow they're saving because there's at some point because people are like, oh, a theater's going to die or whatever, which is relevant to this discussion. I really do think when the theaters are open and people get the perception that it's safe to go again, you know, regardless, whatever. But did they really? Sorry, I just read the Daniel Craig's salary for this apparently.
Yeah, that's why I said over 200 million because that's why.
Well, and so they need to make that much back, but if they have to scale the budget a little bit back for more mid-budget movies, that used to be a thing, and that's where a lot of comedies used to exist. That's why a lot of these movies are just all like this kind of generic action adventure thing. Like Doolittle was like that. I didn't watch Doolittle, but it's just it's a movie. Did you see the old ones with Eddie Murphy?
I've seen the old ones. Have not seen.
I was gonna say because we watched, or like me and the other sister watched them a lot as a kid, but I don't know if that was around still. That VHS was still around when you were getting older. But with, like Eddie Murphy, and he just goes around and talks to animals. It probably would have been great if it was that, but instead it's like a whole pirate adventure, and they have to pull a large item out of a dragon's butthole as the climax of the movie.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, maybe I should watch this. Oscar says, who remembers Netflix DVD by mail library? I don't. I remember when it existed, but that never was a thing in America or Canada. That's American.
I have
thing.
like a funny memory of like I saw someone posted like a Netflix like what the
I've seen
DVD
them.
looked like, and I was like, oh, that's funny. Someone made like a mock-up, and our sister like condescending was like, no, that's how Netflix started. I'll never forget. Now I know.
I've seen like there was a whole postage thing for it, and like they had their special packaging and stuff.
Yeah,
And
I don't remember, but I'm grateful that they started this whole era. I really am. I mean, I miss going to the movies. Like, I love going to the movies. It is a fun experience.
That's what I was going to say. So when it's safe, I think people are going to flock. Like it's going to be a
when it's safe, I will go back as well.
I want to
do
go.
Love streaming services, but I miss it. It's so nice seeing, especially certain films, seeing them on a big screen, proper sound.
I was thinking that a little bit when watching Wonder Woman. I was just be like, something's lost when you like without this, and it might have affected things.
Those flying scenes would have been very cool.
Yeah.
She was on the big screen,
and I was actually thinking it during the jungle gym scene at the beginning, and I don't know if that would have impressed me more, but maybe it would have blanketed over my whole spiel about CGI, practical effects, and stuff like that. But I really felt it in that particular opening. But we don't need to spend another hour talking about Wonder Woman. Oscar also says, Arden and Emery, the real Wonder Twins. Yeah, we do look similar according to other people. It's harder to see it when you're that close to it. But Try 3 says, I checked the mail waiting for days, waiting for the end of days, the old Arnold movie. Have you seen that movie? End of Days?
End of Days? I don't
It's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that's got pseudo-religious elements to it. It's a ride. It's almost worth watching. But I only ever really saw it on cable, where it's like with ads and cut apart, and like maybe I saw it 30 minutes into the end.
It's a little disturbing if like those movies you grow up watching on TV, the way they were all chopped up, and then if you like watch it in full, you're like,
oh, it makes more sense all of a sudden.
It makes sense why they do that, but it's always threw me off as a kid.
Simpsons episodes are like that because they were rerun so much that you get used to a certain version of it and you forget about scenes and jokes and stuff. I don't miss regular TV for that reason. And I don't think going back to that direction is different. Although that actually gets into something that's interesting because, we've been kind of poo-pooing streams so far. But on the other hand, in the old days, you had to pay for cable and you had no control over the kind of stuff you watched. So for example, cable is so expensive, but it's never going to really get cheaper because you're paying for the license of all these different channels. And the bulk of those costs are actually for licensing out the sports channels. There isn't that much of your cable money going to like Dexter or like the Showtime, you know what I mean? Like whatever scripted show. I don't know why Dexter came to mind, but I was going back to cable, and back when people paid for that sort of thing. Did you hear that show's coming back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why it came to mind.
That. I tried rewatching it, and I don't know how we watched so much Dexter, but anyways.
Because I remember rewatching it quite a bit too, but yeah.
Our family was weirdly into it.
That show had a real Game of Thrones effect where it ended, and I lost all interest in it forever, apparently.
I completely agree.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't know if that's how you feel about GOT, but yeah, I've never gotten over a franchise so quickly. But what was
we were talking about cable and the cost of cable.
Yeah, so that cost is mostly in sports and stuff like that, and then scripted television and entertainment and stuff like that. Most of its money through ads, which we knew. Like, I'm sure if I asked you, like, how does a TV show on traditional television, you'd be like, oh, through advertising. But it is a missing part of the equation. It's like, wait, we pay all this money per cable. Like, why isn't that going to make TV irrelevant almost to what you're paying for in that scenario? It's a service to make that connection. But like it goes to like, I like NFL. We were talking about that on our Wonder Woman stream for some reason, but I care about one sport. So to pay for a whole channel for all these other things that I do not care about, from the Olympics to like regular season stuff like basketball, that and it's not anything.
This year, with how many things are canceled, when you did turn on the sports channel, sometimes there was just absolute like nonsense on. They didn't have anything to broadcast for half of this year, so it was pretty ridiculous to be paying for all these ads and ad space.
Yeah, but I was going to say, on the other hand, if you are a horror fan, you can get Shudder. We were off camera talking about Shudder a little bit. That's a all horror stream that looks cool as hell, but neither of us have actually gotten around to getting. My only complaint, last time I was all ready to get Shudder if they had it, but I wanted to watch Friday the 13th Part 3, which is a weird choice, I know, but it gets into the obscure stuff you're saying about torrents. That particular franchise is all caught up in rights, and if Shudder had those movies, I would have been sold. They don't have a lot of those old slasher movies, which is one of my favorite aspects of horror. So, or like subgenres, we'll say. So I didn't really opt for it, but if you're into stuff like The Lighthouse and all those cool things they make, it's a neat service, and it has a lot of other horror movies.
Yeah.
Non-franchisey ones. I want the garbage, though. I wanted the garbage.
It's hard to find the like streaming. I don't know, and that's the problem. I don't have Shudder because once again, it's another thing, and it's hard to like just commit to such a specific genre. But I think if I lived alone, I would probably commit to Shudder because I personally like horror a lot.
Okay.
But then when you're like sharing, a lot of times I live with a partner, so I'm watching with them. So I don't know if we'd be using a full like scary subscription constantly and everything.
Yeah. And then but that also gets into if you were very into indie movies and stuff, that Sundance thing would be so far up your alley. It's kind of perfect. And maybe that one might very well carve its own market out for something. And I like we talked about sports earlier. I've always felt like that would be a very easy, like effective direct market. If you have a football fan, you just sell the football right to them. And that might be the future of sports one day. The only downside is then you can't get to be fair, during the pandemic, ESPN got pretty creative last year and was showing these things, like these other activities that weren't traditionally viewed as sports. They were getting into e-gaming and stuff. It's kind of neat. That gets people to discover things and stuff. So there are ways to do this, and it's in some ways, and I knew the stream was going to at one point just kind of rest on this eventually, but like in some ways it's just the effect of the free market, and these things will find their own place where it's just like everything's working the way it should, which is a weird conclusion to a stream. But I knew it wasn't. Part of the because like it's very you don't have to look very far for a discussion about like there being too many streaming services. First thing I said to you when we got on camera together is like, oh, you're going to help me prevent this being like an old man rancid cloud type of stream, because I wanted to kind of talk about some of the positives too, and how there is a bit more of a debate. Zach says, what are your thoughts on IPTV subscriptions, especially since it gives you all the sports channels for $8 a month? Well, that kind of gets into that gets into the time delay a little bit, but what we were just saying about like I think there is a market for something like that. IPTV. Do you know what that?
Those are like similar to like an Android box, but it's just like a subscription service where then you have like you're available like our IPTV subscription gives us a lot of the American channels, but it has like the commercials. Like it's,
Gotcha.
I don't know exactly how it works, but
I've seen that on smart TV at one of the homes I was working at. I think that's a neat future too, and it's kind of cool how a lot of the TVs are starting to take on like they're almost like they are little computers now, and they can do all these things. You can kind of just have it all programmed in. I think that's also great for setting up. It's way less of a hassle, like feeding in a cable and plugging in all your devices and stuff. Even if your TV doesn't do that and you have a Roku thing or a Fire Stick or something or one of these services, they're pretty cool. And that
also that also reminds me of like another benefit of all of these competing services is that everything is improving in the quality and like efficiency. So even if we go home, anytime I've helped our mom fix a TV, I feel like it gets easier every year, and that's just because everyone's trying to be the very best. So that is a benefit in a way.
I had to set up a lot of electronics last year because of the pandemic, and we were doing all these things, and it's a lot easier than it used to be. Absolutely. That's an excellent point because, oh God, like the older tech can be I was thinking of audio equipment too, with the wires they have to like screw into things and stuff. And now it can be like all wireless and on Bluetooth. I haven't had a lot of experience with that stuff yet, but it seems to mostly work good until it doesn't. The Ninja Gecko has a horror movie recommendation for you called Scissors. Without any further context, which is a little, you never know what you're going to get with a horror movie like that.
Could be anything.
Yeah. Like it's really anything, like good or bad. Oscar says, as a kid, I used to love staying up late with my uncles to watch Kung Fu theater. Well, and that is something that is lost, and it's kind of getting into what I was saying about like how ESPN is. There's an element because every once in a while I find myself in a situation where I happen to be exposed to cable TV, and I can have it on while I'm working in a kitchen or something like that. And it's not terrible. It's nice to not have to think about what to put on. It's just like, oh, this is interesting. As I get older, I find just having the news on is just something nice to have on in the background. And there is something to be said for cable if it was cheaper. But I like I said, I don't really see how that could ever happen because of the way they have it all set up, which is going to destroy it. It would be something worth considering, maybe. I haven't ever really owned cable as an adult, though, so I don't know. But I one thing I actually like is Crave has that on-air thing you can do, and I sometimes do that. Just like,
Yeah, it's a really
just
neat
keep me busy.
Yeah,
I
like I want to be in my house, but I just need something going.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But
the amount of commercials on like traditional cable, though, I just find it so
right.
hard to bear now because we have uninterrupted content available, and then when I watch something like on cable, I just, it drives me crazy.
Well, let's not let them get away with that too much. It's not just commercials, because you're right, but also it's commercials played at a louder volume than regular TV, which, by the way, various studios said they were going to stop doing because it was such a nuisance and causes like potential hearing damage and stuff. People are wearing headphones or whatever. And they never did. And the other thing they do is, we talked about it earlier, but cutting stuff up for syndication so you can fill up ads into the any given video. And then the other thing they do that I feel is the sneakiest, cheesiest thing of all is they'll speed it up by about 1% or something. It's barely noticeable unless you line up the two videos, but actually their pitches will be a little higher and stuff because of it. So they're speeding up the video just to fit in another minute for another commercial. It's so cheap, and you're paying money, much more money than you would for any streaming service, even one that potentially would have ads like Hulu or something like that, which somehow we haven't mentioned, but we haven't really talked much about Amazon Prime either. Though there are plenty of good content across all of them. This hasn't really been a discussion about content too much, so much as the experience of it and the challenges people have. The other thing is, I guess we should maybe disclaim it ourselves. We both have a disposable income without getting into it too much. Like, we're well off enough that we're comfortable being able to afford these for various reasons. Like, whatever our situation is, we'll leave it at that. That's not true for most people, and that's a much tougher decision. And I hate when people are dismissive of like, oh, like poor people, but they can afford a refrigerator, like that Fox News argument of stuff, which is something they legitimately tried to argue once because they pointed out like fridge ownership has gone up a lot over the years for some reason. But they also, like, on average, the amount of cell phones owned and stuff, like all it's gone up, even among people who don't have a ton of money. But these things are pretty necessary, and I would want maybe a lot of people working on the front lines who are making minimum wage to maybe have some sort of outlet so they don't lose their minds and get burnt out and have to quit. Might benefit us all. But my point being, like, I have tremendous sympathy. And if people need to pirate because of that, well, I'm not one to judge. Yeah. I don't know if we can officially endorse that live on air. Yeah. But
now, like 4 years ago, and as a student, I would probably have much different opinions and not be having 5 subscription services. That's a great point.
That's also true. We were both students at one time, and that is true of me as well. When, like, you're just on student loans, you're not. Maybe we would all have a Netflix, but more realistically, we were both cribbing off of other people's and various stuff, which is what you do back then. Like, that's what family can be for. But I'll talk about this because I don't even know if it's a thing anymore. But when we moved in first year, everyone's sharing a network across all the dorms at our school. So we had this thing where you could just post online and download within seconds anything that anyone posted on this large terabyte-sized online hard drive. So it was way better than torrenting. You could download a movie within seconds in 2009. It was incredible. I forget what it was called, but eventually they caught wind of it. But it was fun while it lasted. We got it for like the whole first year before they finally put a kibosh on it. But it was like the entire campus was doing this. And probably makes sense knowing what school I went to and how that might have gone down. But could have been doable on yours too. just the tinier schools could do stuff like that. Oh, Mark Carrillo makes an interesting point. Pretty sure IPTV is illegal in the US. That might be true based on what you're saying about the American channels.
Yeah, we get channels that aren't normally available here. So I think it's definitely, I don't know if it's fully illegal in Canada, but it's borderline questionable.
You might not know this, Emery, but we had something similar growing up on the farm with the satellite dish. You were really young when that happened, but yeah, that was not strictly legal. That the exact service we had there, and it was always a little weird because of it. Oscar says the high school where I work at in LA has an EA sports team. Those kids make me proud. I remember being when I was a teenager and I begged my old school to start a gaming team, and presumably they rejected too hard. Yeah, I feel like the attitudes have really shifted on that quite a bit. It's got a lot more respect. There was a time when some Blizzard, well, I think it's still true. Some of the top, I don't know what it is now, but whatever the top esports the game was several years ago, it was had a bigger payout for its world championship than poker. It's quite incredible how far they've come. And that's a whole other thing too, is we've talked a lot about more Hollywood stuff, but these days there's a lot of creator-owned things. And that actually I find kind of frustrating to a degree. I'm not sure how much you follow Earwolf these days, but I've noticed there's a bit of an exodus for a lot of podcasters, and they're all getting their own Patreons and stuff. And I hate it. It's not that I'm overly attached to the podcast service, but I don't want to spend and it's just a nuisance more than anything else, 10 different subscriptions on Patreon to different indie things.
Well, yeah, it's more subscriptions, and I feel this point of contention because I am an avid podcast listener. I listen to many podcasts all the time. So then I was like, these people are giving me free content. Should I support them on Patreon every month? And it's there's a limit. I have to keep some money for myself too.
That's why I liked Stitcher so much, is it was all under one umbrella, and I knew that the money was at least they were getting some of it, maybe not all of it. Maybe it wasn't enough.
The Stitcher app, at least for Android, the Stitcher app is so bad that I've raged about this in my life to many people. So
there's one downside of that gift is
it's great, but that the app wasn't great. But I liked this Stitcher perks.
I use it a lot on the browser, and I've kind of, I don't know if the app's okay, but it's gotten better. I don't know if you can believe that.
With Patreon, it's hard because it's nice having that option of a way to support people, but it's just adding up. And then all of the Patreon exclusive content. Now I'm do I really want it? So I only have one person I support there, but yeah.
Is it a name we're sharing, or just some random thing?
Oh yeah, I love the Wine and Crime podcast. And they do one episode per week, and it was only $1 per month. So I was this is super justifiable, 25 cents an episode, and I'm a huge fan. And then there's other podcasters I've looked at that I'm I want to support them, but again, I just have to set limits.
Yeah. No, I was just curious if you didn't mind sharing.
Oh, not at all.
But yeah. Raphael, who's been with us for a long time on YouTube, I should say. Also, Tevia, thanks for joining us. He said hi to you earlier, but we lost it in the shuffle. They've just both been around for years now, which I find cool. Raphael says, the next big thing in a decade is a VR show where you watch it play out in front of you. Yeah, I haven't really gotten into VR too much, but that'd be pretty cool. Where you can walk around during a scene. That'd be neat.
That would be really neat.
VR is increasingly becoming affordable and accessible, which I find pretty cool. Something like that would be pretty interesting. It gets into, have you heard of Google Stadia? It's a almost entirely cloud-based gaming platform. It's kind of interesting sounding. I haven't really gotten around to it, but I think that Cyberpunk 2077 game I'm going to get on it because I don't want to buy the PlayStation version. Actually, I can't buy the PlayStation version. They pulled it from the market. It is so buggy. It's an unprecedented move. I don't know if you heard about all of that.
Yeah, I've heard, again, some podcasters have been screaming into the void about that.
The thing about that,
a PlayStation 5.
I was so excited about that game, and then it's just it's not working. It's hard to rush.
Everyone was so excited, and then I guess they just needed more time, and then it's just the disappointment of either keeping people waiting or releasing something before it's ready. It's like
that. Usually my instinct is to wait a little bit until they work out some kinks. I heard the Stadia version's good, so I just then I forgot because Christmas happened and 50 other things have happened since then. But I guess that's another thing I have to buy. Terry says, but what about Disney Plus paying $40 for one movie? Oh, right, they're doing something like that. Well, I am not doing that, and we've actually, me personally, with our streaming audience, have talked a lot about Wonder Woman and the idea of paying $30 and stuff. I talked about it at the beginning of the Wonder Woman stream. I don't hate that price, even though I would never pay for it myself. I feel it's unreasonable for one person to do that. But for a household, where going to the theaters for like one movie would be way more than that. Kind of makes sense. How do you feel?
That I agree. In the current world, like in Ontario and where like movie theaters don't exist, it was very easy. Like when Mulan came out, my partner and I, we love Disney movies. So I think it was 20 Canadian dollars. We already pay for Disney Plus, but if we go on a movie date, we spend much more than $20 going to the movies. So it was very easy to justify. We really wanted to see this. But it kind of is like every time we see a movie,
that's pretty good because even at two people, that's
$10 each is very justifiable for us. But not every movie. I can't justify spending that much money on it. And then
do you get to keep it, or is it 48 hours? Because I honestly
can't remember. I think I'm 90% sure we get to keep it. Like we can watch Mulan anytime.
That would make more sense for Disney Plus because it's a subscription, which is better. That's way better than Wonder Woman. You get 48 hours for the $30, which is also because I'm not great about that either. I've done that before and very nearly been like, oh God, I should have just bought it. Like, because I'll lose the renting period. That's the thing on how this
get made. We did that with one thing. It's like, oh, we'll finish it tomorrow. And then it goes and you're like, I want to rent it again for the last 30 minutes of a movie, but it's like the climax.
Try 3 has reminded me of something I forgot about, but I always remember muting commercials. It's a thing you can do. The thing is, though, I always miss when the show comes back on. I'll look up, damn it, and then have to unmute it.
Or trying to, if you have like the last channel button on your remote, trying to switch back and forth between channels, but
they try and work against that, though. Like they try and time it out so everyone.
So they're all just on commercial, and then you miss all of your shows.
Stevia says, question, what happens if the service go down and you can't get access to these streaming services? Well, it sucks to be you kind of thing. It's happened before. There's libraries of stuff people own, quote unquote, that they kind of lose access to if the company goes bankrupt. It's why so on YouTube, I own a few things and I don't really need to worry about Google going under anytime soon. But a lot of these things you don't own. And if there's ever some legal issue, often you can potentially lose your copy of it because it's digital. That is where, like, at that point, I would just say, well, then you pirate it because you paid for something and now it's being deprived from you. But that happens. Do you know what CISO is? It's defunct.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's an old, like, I don't blame you at all because it's defunct. Like I said, it's an old NBC-ish kind of streaming thing they tried out that you kind of got it with Amazon Prime, and there are shows made for it that you can't really get anywhere right now because they don't know what to do with a lot of them. A couple of them found, and a couple of them found homes elsewhere, but a lot of them, the rights are just tied up in all this nonsense. It might emerge on Peacock because that's like,
another.
They're trying again, and another thing. It's just amazing how many come up that are real. Like we haven't even had to make any up and be like, what is there to be next? A Weather Channel streaming service, which will happen. Some sort of Weather Channel subscription probably exists of some kind already. Raphael says, pirating is legal. Profiting from pirating is illegal. That's definitely true in Canada. I can't speak for the US, but you are correct.
That's neat to know.
Yeah, Canada's funny like that. It's the same thing with before decriminalization. Like, you can't profit off of marijuana. You can't buy marijuana. But if you have marijuana, there's nothing wrong with it.
Like,
that was how the that is how the law once worked. Now it's a whole different. Now it's legal property. Like I buy it at a store with people. Run by people I know personally. Like, and they're very nice. I would recommend them to anyone living in my community, but I ain't gonna. Well, sure. If I ever happen to be in Guelph, Ontario, you all should shop at Canja. They were great. Tell them Arden sent you. Weird. That'll be weird if it works out. Even once. Zach says, if you see the League of Legends World Finals, it's in a stadium larger than the NFL with a way better show. I didn't know that. That's cool. League of Legends, that's a huge game, so that doesn't surprise me too much that it's that game, but the actual scale that he just described is incredible. I have watched some shows like that before, even just the way like it's cast and stuff, and then the broadcasters treat it like a serious broadcasting thing and talk about it like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's going by a mile a minute, that's always impressive.
They have very impressive events. I remember my partner showed me the halftime show for the League of Legends, and it was like it was wild. They had like holograph performers and real performers going on. It was a very impressive
So it is like the halftime show he was describing, and
it's really neat.
I guess we can give it away. That is her partner.
Yeah,
we're talking about the same part. I don't know. I actually assume no reason that we had to hide. I just thought it was funny. I treated him like a stranger. Not like it's funny. Just be good comment there. Try3 says, if I didn't get rid of cable, I couldn't afford all these streaming services, so I just replaced it. It is actually cheaper. Sorry, you seem to follow that better than I do. He's saying, if I didn't get rid of cable, I wouldn't. Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
This is a point of contention I have with our mom, because she holds on to cable and refuse. Like, I don't. We've
had the same argument. The two of us with her independently.
All of her children are like, get rid of cable. You're wasting your money. I think everyone on this stream agrees that it's a waste of money. She's the only person I know that pays for cable.
I am a little empathetic because of the situation I described. It is nice, but it's so expensive, and they put her through so much crap over it that I don't understand either.
Personally, I can't justify paying for it. I would rather pay for the streaming services.
And that is, it took me a second to understand what Try3 was saying down here, but it's an either or situation for him.
I agree.
And in that scenario, I too would pick streaming, and I'm not. Maybe if I had all the money in the world and I wasn't saving up for other stuff, like a house, I could pay for cable. But that ain't the situation. Like, I have a disposable income, but not an infinite income.
Yeah.
Try3 says, I still play PS3, LOL. I guess, and that gets into budgeting and stuff. That's not unusual. Like, I know a lot of people where it's like that's their financial situation and stuff, and I don't blame you. Realistically, I could only afford a PS4 last year. Like, I got it and knew damn well I was like the PS5 was around the corner, but got it for a good price for that reason. And then Oscar Magna says, yeah, LOL, yes, I still play Xbox 360. I have them. There's both of those systems sitting. Oh, do you have the 360 now, I think?
I think I have it.
Does it even work?
We're actually kind of in the process of combining it with Zach's Xbox 360, because they have the equal working, like opposite working parts, so we can have it at the cottage just for cottage purposes.
Cool. Yeah, it's good for that. Yeah, that makes sense.
They would still work, but some of them are missing parts, so we're making it into one working one.
There's an old Wii sitting at one of the homes I sometimes work at, and I don't know. I got it working at one point, and we were trying it out, but it's just funny seeing some of that stuff. Try3, we're going to skip right down to this, but he makes an excellent point. Cable is simpler if you're not tech savvy. And that kind of gets into, like, it is a generational thing. I think it's easier for our mom than navigating some of those streaming services, the ability of which I don't know exists. Like, I don't know how well developed that is for her.
As we mentioned before, it's gotten easier to use subscription services, but it's not. It is easier to, once you have cable hooked up, to just flick it on. I can agree to that. I see that point of the argument. Yeah.
And like, certainly for older people or whatever, in my line of work with disabilities, that it is a lot easier. And I mentioned, like, setting up tech and struggling with tech. It's very difficult sometimes for people. Like, it's not just intuitive for a lot of people. So on the other hand, the developing technology of plug and play and just being able to do that is making things easier. And okay, I can't talk about my job too much, but for a lot of the people, they can set it up on their own and stuff. We were just told to be careful with our social media behavior. I was okay, but I got to be careful with that. Oscar says, totally agree with Tri3. My wife and I caught cable cord 10 years ago in favor of online streaming platforms. Well, it gets into what you were saying, Emery, about like how most people, I mean, we're going to have a very tech savvy audience because, they're all streamers and stuff, but they're mostly going to be with us about like cutting the cord. The other thing is, and this is, again, one rare moment where Canada and the US are kind of in unison. Our cable companies between the two countries, like we have different companies, but they are both terrible. Like they're terrible in both nations. Ours is awful, but I've heard horror stories about America's too. It's very comparable of an experience from what I've heard, and not having to deal with them is wonderful. I get my internet through a different provider that's much, much better. Do you? Or are you with Rogers or something?
We're still with Bell.
Oh, okay. They're all right, but they can
right.
sometimes be. Yes, they're aggressively okay. Where you live, it kind of makes more sense though, because the company that I'm with, like the farther out you get into, we'll say the woods, the harder it is to get that kind of service.
And I know in a lot of places in US and even like some areas of Canada are still working on getting high-speed internet access at all.
Okay. I thought you were going to say they only have one company you can buy from, which is true for places.
That's a huge problem.
And then it's a monopoly. Yeah, you're so effed in the B with that.
For sure.
Tri3 says, with cable, it's just paying for convenience, but if you're tech savvy, it's a luxury. Yeah, that kind of nicely summarizes what you're saying. Oh, Jesus. Sometimes I get, the Shadow Catcher says, solo, is that? Anyways, gotta drop the rock. Oh, I thought he said gotta go drop a rock, as in, that's why I laughed before I read this. I misread him, but love your show. Your sister is beautiful. I hope to see you on here later. And I assume Ta instead of FA. But yes, thank you, Shadow Catcher. We'll see you next time. And then he usually watches us during work, so kind of comes and goes. Tri3 says, the only predatory company I want to deal with is my ISP. Well, see, that's the nice thing is my internet service provider is excellent. And it's come up before and they've been like, oh, we don't keep records on you guys, but if the government requires us to disclose anything, we do it. But if you reset your modem, we lose all the data. Just good for you to know, right? So it's just kind of like every once in a while you might want to do that kind of thing. Like they weren't even they were just kind of, it was a general information thing, but they're very good at keeping us informed and care. At one point, this is the most unreal moment I've ever had with any service provider. They email me and they're like, hey, we got this great deal on our internet and we're going to pass these savings off to you. So you get $5 off every month now. Enjoy.
Just out of the blue.
Yeah, they had to raise it later, and they were very clear about why that was and how they were trying to fight it and all this stuff. But
that's fair.
What kind of company does that for you? Like, it was so awesome. So I'm very loyal with them. They're called Tech Savvy, ironically, but that really only helps Canadians. But highly recommended. If they have service in your area and they're available, then they work great. And they always will check, because if they don't, then it's not going to do anything. Tri3 says, the lack of cords makes everything neater. Yes, I am definitely appreciating that out of wireless stuff more and more. I used to hate wireless because something like a mouse, it would lag like crazy, or there'd be a delay, or the batteries would go really quickly. But now that technology has developed, cutting cords every which way is kind of nice. And that's where I think cable is kind of a relic of the past. It's interesting. I didn't think much about cable before going into this, but that is a very relevant part of this discussion. Oscar says, in the area where I live, you only have one cable and one. Yeah, see, he has the nightmare scenario. One cable, one internet provider. We don't really have any option. Well, he said opinions, but options is what he meant to say. And I can't imagine that. We kind of have had like various places we've lived before. Rogers sort of had for a while a monopoly on high-speed internet, and it was awful. Mm-hmm. And then over time, Bell got DSL, and then like those companies like Tech Savvy started, and competition started to exist, and all of a sudden Rogers got a lot better with it. But for those that don't know, Rogers Communication is a nationwide company in Canada, and they suck. They're the AT&T of Canada.
Literally. Yeah.
What? He says, wait, if you
when you were mentioning you can reset your modem, I think.
Oh, right. I don't know if that's just how tech savvy works, though. I don't think that's true for most internet service providers. If you reset, or if we reset, all I have to do is unplug and plug my modem back in, and my internet history is wiped with the company. They just, oh, it's a function of our system, I guess, or something. But it's their way of kind of being like, we're not, it's not our job to keep records of this stuff. Or at least that's what they said. This was years ago, so I don't know how true it is anymore or whatever. And then the Ninja Genko, probably in response to something, said $5 ain't an issue these days. Okay. $5 isn't, I would say. That's pretty affordable for anyone. But most things are more, like most of the things we talked about are quite a bit more than that, US or Canadian. And then Try3 says, I've heard horror stories of Rogers from friends in Canada. My goodness. It's surprising.
We could have a whole episode about that whole stream.
Sure. I was just thinking, like, it's less surprising in the other direction because America has such a bigger population. But for you to hear about it from all the way in the US, just from like the relatively smaller section of Canadians, its reputation precedes it. Yeah. And the funny thing is too, like there's a big history to it. Like Ted Rogers has a statue outside of our largest, it's got to be the biggest stadium in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Skydome. Well, whatever it's called now, the Rogers Center. Oh, hey. Thank you, Zach. $5 ain't an issue today. And Ninja Genko says, get it, Zachary. Well, thank you. Oh, he did a sticker, but we can't see the sticker. Nice. Okay, so looking on the actual browser thing, it's a little person doing a height thing. Oh, it's a hippo pumping his arms up and down in the air. If you go onto YouTube, the like thing, you can see it. Oh, hey, here, I'll show you. Share. Yeah. Nope. Oh, hang on. Oh, hold on. I just got to give it permission. Screen one. Here we go. Okay, do you see the sticker?
I see it. Aw, he's cute.
Okay, that would create an infinite effect over time. So I'm going to get rid of that. But yeah, thanks for the hype hippo. That's our first ever super sticker. We've had people super chat before, and we always appreciate it. But usually it's accompanied with a comment, not a hype hippo, which is great. Oh, and now my screen is part of our chat, but it's not showing up on the thing, so that's good. Okay, so, oh wow, we've been going for an hour. I knew it was a while, but yeah, it's interesting how that is, eh? And we've caught up with chat and stuff. Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end it. But thanks for joining us, Emery. Based on some soft discussion we were having before, I think we'll have you back on next week for a video we kind of agreed to beforehand. Why don't we tell them? So then if anyone wants to watch it, they can. We're going to review the New Mutants movie together. Emery had some interesting thoughts about Wonder Woman 1984, so it would be a good time to move it. And I haven't reviewed that movie yet. I look forward to experiencing the train wreck for myself. You've already seen it. Did you like it? Don't get into the whole thing yet, but just a simple yes or no. Or...
I would say like I liked it, but we were debating is if I'm going to actually rewatch the whole thing for this review because I have seen it in completion, and that I'm debating myself. But it's not. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll rewatch, but it wasn't terrible.
Okay.
That's my sentence.
Here's it. So that's on record now. But so this is your opinion. Between now and then, I'm going to watch the movie, and we're going to hook you up with a New Mutants book of some kind or another, or at least a couple. So
I'm going to be more informed when we rediscuss.
Well, this. No, I'm going to say it'll be interesting. We'll kind of see if this changes your opinion one way or the other. I'll be curious to see that. So we'll leave it at that. But and then Zach is saying what's the next video. So yeah, that now you know, and you're invited to come if you want. But just you, Zachary. I can't account for other people's microphones or what they're like on mic and stuff. So that's not an open invitation. Sorry, guys. Oscar says, "Gotta go, peeps. Having a late lunch for the wife. That's the fun with time zones because otherwise it's dinner." If you live in our time zone. And it says, "I love your guys' channel and everyone on here. Try3 is wisdom." Oh, that's a nice thing to say about another viewer. And speaking of which, Try3 says, "Oh, I gotta go finish New Mutants." Yeah, that's a fun way of doing it. And to Ninja Genko says, running the heel sends the wrong message. I have a niece to worry about. Hey, okay, so he's referring to that bit from Wonder Woman 1984. We were talking about that. How do you're a woman. How do you feel about the high heels running in various movies that have cropped up kind of recently?
It's just like, yeah, we need more like shoe variety in movies, because growing up, I like shoes and I like to choose to wear high heels. But growing up, I was kind of under the impression of like, when I'm a woman, I'm going to wear high heels 24/7. And like, if you did that, you would have back problems. Like, that's not good for people. And yeah, like people just don't, like, women don't really wear running shoes in movies. So I'm like, well, what are they going to run in besides heels? Because that's what they're wearing. And it's like, maybe we should just put them in different shoes sometimes.
Wow. So that kind of, so in Jurassic World, it really was like A, kind of a joke, but B, it's just like, well, those are the shoes.
That's what she's wearing. She's wearing a suit, so she's wearing heels. And it's like,
and then they went, have you seen the sequel, Fallen Kingdom, where they like highlight her boots? And it's like, she's wearing boots now. Leave us alone.
Yes.
But she's a lot more fun in that movie. I feel it's not as good maybe, but I liked her character more in this sequel. Try3 says, okay, we'll save that for next time. He just got distracted from New Mutants. Okay, so thanks again, everybody, and Emery for joining us. And we'll, it was fun to do.
See you next time.
Yeah, have a good one, everyone. All right.